It's finally happening. Several R-vees on the road today are at real risk of being banned in 2026, and almost nobody is prepared for it. States are tightening emission and weight rules, and certain gas and diesel rigs fall directly into the danger zone. Dealers already know that's why prices are dropping, trade values are falling, and compliance under review notes keep showing up behind closed doors. But here's the part that should worry every R-V owner. Some of the first rigs facing bans are the most common models on American highways. If you own or plan to buy an R-V in the next 12 months, this matters more than you think. Thor ACE 29D, gas class, a workhorse. The first thing you notice about the Thor ACE 29D is not the size or the shine. It is the silence you hear when you ask dealers about its future. They hesitate, they look down, they shift their weight before answering. That alone tells you something is happening that most shoppers are not supposed to know yet. And it all traces back to a simple truth hidden under the floor. The chassis this coach relies on is heading into a turning point. And the people who understand the market pressure are already making moves before the slowdown becomes official. This model rides on the Ford F53 platform, a gasoline frame that has carried countless motorhomes for more than a decade. But the problem is weight. The Thor ACE 29D typically lands between 16,000 and 18,000 pounds once it is fully readied for travel, placing it inside the exact bracket, now being reviewed by multiple state agencies preparing for updated emission alignment in the year 2026. The moment the weight category becomes regulated, this entire class of rigs can shift from simple to uncertain. And when registration becomes uncertain, resale follows right behind it. You can already see hints of the shift. Listings that once held steady near $129,000 are now showing numbers close to $101,000. That is not a normal seasonal dip. That is owners and dealers trying to get ahead of a change before it reaches their driveways. Anytime a price falls that sharply on a coach with steady demand, you know something upstream is pushing the trend. In this case, it is the same Ford chassis note that circulated among service centers last winter, warning that allocations for 2026 were not confirmed while emission standards remained under review. A short sentence, but a heavy one. What does that mean for someone standing on a lot today? It means timing matters more than trim. If your state mirrors the stricter guidelines, a rig like this could face longer waits for approval or added inspection steps. Neither of those destroy a coach, but both of them push used values downward, because buyers prefer certainty. Once confidence dips, depreciation quickens. Once depreciation quickens, trade values follow. That is how a reliable road coach becomes a financial question mark without changing a single bolt. Still, this model deserves respect. It has carried families, crossed long stretches of open highway, and proven itself mechanically straightforward. The concern is not the build. The concern is the category. Weight alone is pushing it toward a future that may require more patience and more documentation than most owners expect. And if you think that is concerning, wait until you see what happens when the weight climbs even higher. The next entry shows how fast the pressure increases when a motorhome crosses the next threshold. Jayco Greyhawk, 29 MV, Family Class C. Favorite? There is a certain kind of silence you notice when people talk about the Jayco Greyhawk 29 MV these days. Not fear, not rumor, just that steady, uneasy quiet that slips in when something familiar begins shifting beneath the surface. The Greyhawk has been a dependable road companion for years, built on the Ford E450 platform, and shaped around real travel, real families, and real mileage. But the same traits that once made it a smart, middleweight option are now the very reasons it sits under a harder spotlight. The turning point begins with the weight class. Fully prepared for the highway, the Greyhawk 29 MV settles around 14,500 pounds. That number matters because multiple emission alignment drafts for the year 2026 list gasoline-powered vehicles above the 14,000 threshold as candidates for extended review. The language is clinical, but the effect is personal. Longer renewal windows, added verification steps, more paperwork between you and a plate sticker. None of that ruins a motorhome, but every bit of it affects confidence. And confidence always shows up in used values before it shows up anywhere else. You can see it happening right now. Units that once moved steadily in the mid-$60,000 range are appearing closer to $53,500. Jayco did not change the build. Ford did not change the frame. The shift came from a comment during a Ford Fleet presentation last winter. A single line, a 450 gasoline compliance for 2026 is still under assessment. Dealers heard it. Auction buyers heard it, and value charts began tilting downward within weeks. When a platform falls into uncertainty, the entire model follows, even when nothing mechanical is wrong. The Greyhawk 29 MV deserves better than rumor because the coach itself remains honest. Straightforward systems, understandable maintenance, floor plans that do not try to outshine the fundamentals. But regulation does not care about intention. It cares about numbers, load, and classification. That is why this model sits in the middle of the spotlight. Not because of faults, but because it occupies the exact zone regulators are debating. When the weight band tightens, the ripple touches everything sitting near the line. What does that mean right now? It means timing matters far more than paint, trim, or options. If your state mirrors those alignment rules, you could encounter registration friction even if the coach runs flawlessly. And friction lowers demand. Lower demand bends prices. That is how dependable rigs become cautious purchases without changing a single component. And if you think this weight class is tense, the next chapter steps into even heavier territory, where the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. If this breakdown is helping you see the real risk in R-vees heading for 2026 restrictions, hit like and subscribe to stay ahead of each update. Share your experience or state below to track where the bans are spreading. Coachmen Freelander 31 MB, Heavy Class C. Some motorhomes hint at their future the moment you step inside them. The Coachmen Freelander 31 MB does it the opposite way. It feels planted. It feels familiar. It feels like the kind of rig that should remain steady no matter what happens in the market. That is why its recent shift has caught so many long-time road travelers off guard. Nothing about the build has changed. Nothing about the floor plan has changed. Yet the entire category it sits in is drifting toward a new line, and that line is not drawn by Coachmen at all. The weight tells the story first. Once this model is prepared for a proper trip, you are looking at just over 12,500 pounds on the Ford E450 gasoline platform. For years, that weight meant capability and comfort. But the new alignment drafts for the year 2026 treat anything above the 10,000-pound bracket as part of a medium-duty class requiring deeper review. The wording sounds harmless until you notice what it does to timing. Renewals slow, inspections widen, and dealers begin adjusting their pricing long before any rule becomes official. Evidence of that shift is already showing. At the start of last year, the Freelander 31 MB regularly appeared near $118,995. Today, you can find several units listed closer to $92,900. That kind of drop is not a clearance tactic. It is a pre-adjustment, a signal that someone upstream is preparing for heavier scrutiny on gasoline-powered rigs that sit above a certain load threshold. These are not guesses. The Arizona Department of Transportation's emission alignment draft from late winter includes a direct reference to gasoline motor vehicles exceeding 10,000 pounds, subject to expanded review in 2026. The Freelander 31 MB is well above that line. The irony is that nothing mechanical is wrong with this coach. The systems remain straightforward. The layout remains practical. Parts remain available. The challenge is not the motorhome, it is the category. Heavy Class C platforms are being watched, weighed, and sorted as states decide whether to follow stricter guidelines. And when a category enters review, depreciation accelerates even for models that have done nothing wrong. What matters most right now is understanding how confidence shapes the market. When potential buyers worry about renewal hurdles, demand softens. When demand softens, values slide. And when values slide, trade-ins lose leverage. All of that touches the Freelander 31 MB simply because of its weight and its place in the medium-duty bracket. And if you think this is the ceiling of pressure, the next chapter steps into an even heavier zone, where the line between approval and denial becomes narrower with every passing season. Winnebago Winnie 31K. Large Class C. It has long been known as a reliable heavy-duty Class C rig built for families and serious road travel. It carries itself with the stability and confidence that comes from years of proven design. But stability does not protect against regulatory shifts. And right now, this model sits directly in the zone under scrutiny for the year 2026. The weight, the platform, and the gasoline engine all align in ways that could make this rig harder to register in multiple states that follow stricter emission standards. The weight is the first clue. Fully equipped for a road trip, including full tanks, slide-outs extended, and cargo loaded, the Minnie Winnie 31K reaches roughly 14,500 pounds. That number is not arbitrary. In draft compliance documents circulating among state departments last winter, any gasoline Class C above the 14,000-pound mark falls into a medium-heavy vehicle review bracket. That bracket is the one under inspection for 2026 emissions alignment, meaning longer paperwork, verification steps, and potential delays for registration. It is not a mechanical issue. It is a numerical one. Weight alone has begun to define what is considered registerable. Proof of concern is already visible on the market. Listings that previously held steady around $78,000 to $85,000 are now appearing near $69,500. Dealer bulletins in the Midwest have started flagging pre-adjustment pricing for units in this weight class. Auction photos of the newest model year show unsold units lingering on lots longer than usual, with floor plan pressure beginning to show across multiple regions. It is not hype. These are facts tied directly to the regulatory uncertainty surrounding the 14,500-pound classification. For those relying on resale value, the implications are clear. A rig that trades below market before regulations even take effect indicates that confidence is already softening. Buyers are watching weight, platform, and emission alignment, and sellers are adjusting accordingly. The Minnie Winnie 31K, despite its reliability, sits at the intersection of these factors. It is a durable classic in mechanical terms, but the financial category it occupies has suddenly become risky. Looking ahead, timing is critical. Early movers who recognize which weight brackets are targeted will protect their value. Later arrivals may find the same rig more difficult to register or selling at a steeper discount. Understanding this model's placement in the regulatory framework is the difference between a smooth transition and a loss in market value. And if the Minnie Winnie 31K is already under pressure, the next chapter moves into diesel territory, where weight, emissions, and platform restrictions combine to create the most severe market tension yet. To make sure you never miss critical updates on which R-vees are safe and which could lose registration, subscribe now. This will keep you informed instantly as new states, models, and dealer alerts emerge before they impact your wallet. Tiffin Allegro RED 340 Diesel Pusher. Its ride is steady, its systems are reliable, and for years, it has carried families across long stretches of highway with few complications. But reliability does not protect a rig from the forces of regulation and market mechanics. And the Allegro RED 340 now finds itself in a category facing growing scrutiny for the year 2026. This is a diesel pusher that cannot escape its own weight and its engine platform. At full load, the Allegro RED 340 measures just over 26,000 pounds. That number alone is enough to trigger concern under emerging state guidelines. Draft documentation circulating among environmental and transportation agencies last winter specifies that diesel Class A rigs exceeding 20,000 pounds fall under an extended review category. The classification itself does not stop a motorhome from being legal, but it does create timing issues, longer approval windows, additional inspection requirements, administrative holdups that dealers and owners alike will feel in the months leading up to 2026. When registration slows, values respond, often before the rules take effect. Evidence is already visible in the market. In the last 9 months, Allegro RED 340 units that previously held prices near $259,000 are now showing closer to $215,000. Auction sheets indicate that the newest model years linger longer than expected, even on active lots. Dealers have begun labeling some units as pre-adjustment clearance, signaling the early market recognition of regulatory pressure. Each unsold unit represents confidence eroding. Each price reduction confirms that this is no longer a static, predictable market. The Allegro RED 340 is still mechanically sound, Systems operate as intended. Maintenance remains straightforward for experienced operators. Diesel infrastructure continues to support the platform. The challenge is not the rig itself. It is the combination of weight, engine type, and classification under states following the stricter zero-emission alignment for 2026. That combination is moving the Allegro RED 340 into a financially sensitive zone despite the coach's integrity. For owners and those tracking the market, the lesson is clear. Timing and awareness will dictate value retention. Early understanding of which rigs face heavier scrutiny allows informed decisions. Those who enter the market without this knowledge risk delayed approvals and depreciated trade-in potential. Confidence drives prices. Weight and emissions drive confidence. And if the Allegro RED 340 faces this kind of pressure, the next model shows what happens when even gasoline rigs, once considered safe, are subject to stricter scrutiny and market recalibration. The stakes rise with each pound and each state adopting the new alignment. Fleetwood Bounder, 35K, Gas Class A icon. Experienced travelers have relied on Fleetwood Bounder, 35K robust construction, straightforward systems, and predictable handling, but the stability and reputation of this Gas Class A icon cannot shield it from the shifting forces of regulation and market pressure that are building toward the year 2026. The challenge is not mechanical, it is numerical. It is a category, a classification, a weight band that suddenly defines the coach's future. The chassis is the starting point. The Bounder 35K rides on the Ford F53 platform, a frame long favored for durability. Fully loaded, including fuel, water, and cargo, this coach reaches 22,000 pounds. That figure is critical. Draft emissions guidance released last winter identifies gasoline vehicles over 20,000 pounds as falling under an expanded regulatory review. Any state aligning with these stricter rules will introduce additional steps for registration, approval, and verification. The coach is sound. The regulations make the market nervous, and nervous markets affect pricing instantly. Proof of the effect is already clear. Listings that traded steadily at $189,995 last year are now appearing near $159,000. Dealer memos circulating in the Midwest indicate F53 chassis allocation for 2026 remains uncertain, signaling limited availability and extended processing times. Auction data confirms a longer dwell on lots, with unsold units accumulating as potential buyers hesitate in anticipation of delayed approvals. Each delayed registration, each extended listing nudges confidence downward, and depreciation follows. The Bounder 35K remains mechanically sound with available parts and reliable systems, yet weight over 20,000 pounds. And the Ford F53 gasoline platform drives regulatory scrutiny. Uncertainty slows registration, softens demand, lowers prices, and reduces trade-in value. Confidence dictates the cycle, creating tangible financial impact without mechanical failure. And if the Fleetwood Bounder 35K demonstrates how gasoline platforms respond to scrutiny, the next model reveals the peak of pressure, the heaviest and most widely owned gas Class A in the United States. That rig illustrates how regulation, weight, and market perception converge to shift values before any official enforcement date arrives. Forest River, Georgetown, 5 Series, heaviest gas Class A. It is the benchmark for heavy gas Class A coaches on American highways. Its frame, layout, and engine platform have made it one of the most widely owned and consistently reliable rigs for years. Yet reliability alone does not shield a coach from the forces that are reshaping registration, classification, and market value as the year 2026 approaches. The pressure comes not from wear and tear, but from weight, platform, and emerging emission regulations. Fully loaded for a long journey, the Georgetown 5 Series weighs between 18,000 and 22,000 pounds. That is the number that defines its immediate regulatory future. Draft compliance documents circulating in state environmental offices show gasoline Class A vehicles above 18,000 pounds, falling under a medium-heavy vehicle review bracket. That bracket triggers extended registration steps, inspections, and verification procedures. The coach itself remains mechanically sound. The market perception shifts. Confidence moves first, and values follow. Proof of the change is already visible. Listings that traded last spring near $169,000 are now appearing closer to $142,500. Dealer portals show notations such as pending regulatory assessment for F-53 gasoline platforms in 2026, indicating that allocation and approval are no longer guaranteed. Auction photographs reveal new units remaining unsold longer than typical, signaling floor plan pressure is building quietly but unmistakably. The numbers are tangible, the effect is direct. This model relies on mechanical reliability, straightforward systems, and widely available parts. Yet, weight and the F-53 gasoline platform now define market perception. Regulatory uncertainty drives buyer hesitation, softening demand, lowering prices, and reducing trade-in leverage. Registration delays or added verification can immediately impact resale, making confidence the first and tangible casualty. If the Fleetwood Bounder 35K illustrated how gasoline platforms face scrutiny, the Georgetown 5 Series demonstrates the peak of impact. It shows how weight, classification, and ownership converge to influence registration, pricing, and value across multiple states. Every pound, every platform decision, and every regulatory update is already reflected in market behavior. The lesson is clear: the heaviest gas Class A rigs carry the largest financial exposure, and the window to act before 2026 is shrinking rapidly. That's the 2026 danger list. If this helped you stay ahead, hit like. Drop a comment with your state or your rig so we can track where bans hit first. And subscribe now. The next update could affect your RV.